The end product of our working together happens to be A.D.R, which is defined as automatic dialogue replacement, automated dialogue replacement, automated
Additional dialogue
The
recording.
truth is that here we are, these people in this industry, we have no idea exactly what that means.
Can't quite agree on what the term AD, but ADR has, for anybody who really doesn't know, has to do with replacing or redoing the dialogue for scenes in a studio after the scenes have been shot, so that you can either change the performance, help the performance, change the writing, help the writing, or whatever. And it has to do with being in the recording booth almost always alone, sometimes with two of you. And we're sitting in the other booth listening and watching and fixing what needs to be fixed.
A lot of people out there don't know the technical aspects of ADRing, and what it entails is you have three beeps, and then you have an imaginary beep, which is your fourth beep, whereas the dialogue is being replaced. But then you have another technique that's called chasing. So they have this animation set up, right, where the character is jumping over things or going through a mission, and then you just sort of chase it and go along and match the actions to the voice.
And what we talked about that earlier. Holy shit. Gameplay, we do a lot of the chasing, sometimes together.
Here, I've got you. Give me your hand.
Just go. And some of the stuff comes out, no one will ever hear the stuff we do. Not because it's vulgar, but because, well, a lot of, yeah, it is vulgar, isn't it? We could do a whole nother version of this game. But for me, the ADR, you could say anything when he jumps over this thing, like, groin. You know, little things, and then you never know, Amy and her sick little mind may actually put it in the game. But there was one in the first game where I saw this, and it was definitely a stuntman, do this elaborate kick. And we chased it, and that's where I said that. It's like, I will kick you to sleep. And that went in the game, and I've had more people comment on that, and it was one of those things where we made it up.
There's tons of improvisations.
The improv factor, it just makes it so much fun, and it's so freeing. While you're physically constrained, you're free to let your mind say anything.
And it's isolated normally with most voice work. So you get into a booth and they say, you're playing 3 characters today. The first one, you're 300 pounds, you're a slut, and you've got a gravelly voice like you've smoked 400 cigarettes a day. Go. And you suddenly have to create a character with that.
Right.
Richard can do that.
You know.
And I have.
But I enjoy ADR when we don't have to sync anything up to lips. That's great. I mean, I have a blast with that. With the last session that we did, when we were doing all the rooftop climbing and the running, and you're climbing up the ladder, and I'm like, see your butt from down. You know, that, when we're improvising. I had a blast doing that, you know. The worst thing with ADR is when you're syncing, you're trying to sync a performance, which I know that we really have that problem on this. So yeah, on film you have that problem where you're trying to put your voice into your own mouth. But the opportunity to go back and improve something is fantastic. In theatre, you don't have that opportunity. You suck one night, you sucked in front of those people. You can't go, can I just do that bit again? You know.
But doing ADR really well is a real art and skill in itself, right?
And can I say, just to add to that, one of the toughest things in doing video games is you look at a line and you have to immediately do a performance. You don't have time to go, what's the background behind this?
But sitting for the first time with Nolan in the room, I was reminded of, you know, the job of a leading man. You know, you can, you know, whether you respect someone on set or not, whether they can really sort of, you know, drive the story. Nolan's skills in the sound booth, I mean, he hits it every single time. I'd say he's pretty much, dare I say it, perfect. Everything he does, he follows the notes.
You got that, right?
Sorry.
I'd like that to be my new ringtone.
And I think, yeah, it's true though. You're impeccable, and you don't. It's a tough skill to have, because in the voice world, you have to be able to get in there, do your work in a session time, an allotted time. There's other people waiting, and get out in an industry where good enough, near enough isn't good enough. And you need people like Nolan who get hired based on word of mouth because they know he's as good as he is.
And being in the same room with him, it makes it a lot better when there's 2 of us in the room, but especially if it's the 2 of us together.
You know, there's a few games are doing that now, but this one was one of the first ones I ever worked on, where you actually put 2 people together.
Hello.
I think for me it was the most intimidating part of the project.
Really?
Because I'm such a newbie. Coming in, having just theater training and working across from voices that it's so specific, and to know when you're in your chest or when you're in your nasal cavity, or if you're speaking quietly, or what's going on, or being out of breath, or if you're having, like, even just the other day we were ADRing something, and we're doing jumps, and so it's like, ugh! And they're like, I think it's not so much a as it is a and like the first game they were like, okay, we need a sequence where you jump, slide down wall, land on knuckles, and roll on knee. And I'm like, okay. Perfect. And you're just like, what is that?
And you may not have done that in real life yet, and they're not going to give you the opportunity to try it out in the hallway, so you've just got to imagine what
So,
you're doing.
I don't know, for me it's the most intimidating.
It makes ADR.
It's an art. It's an art, and people don't think that it is.
And a lot of people who haven't done a lot of this seem to think that they're just reading the words, but would people who are really experienced use their whole body in that little space, in order to
there's
create.
certain things you can do, and I always try to get into a physical, like if I'm doing for some reason, I mean, it just helps me, and I don't know if it would help everyone, but like if I'm doing like a little wizard or something, doing that voice, I'll hunch my shoulders over and pull them in. I don't know why, it just feels like it's sniveling, and and I do things with my face. I'll make, if I'm doing like a goofy guy, I'll do that helps me get the voice out, because it's a goofy face, and
Christopher Walken.
I can't do him.
He's lying.
Well, that's interesting about ADR. I mean, a lot of people don't know that in the film industry. I have done ADR for famous actors when they're not available. Done like 5 movies as Christopher Walken.
What did he sound like?
A lot like this, Gordon. Scott. Sometimes I'm afraid of manatees because they're dirty. But Pacino, I mean, all these different characters, and people don't realize. They're like, well, what do you mean? It's for Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3. It was interesting because Tony Scott he'll cut a whole nother film without so he doesn't have people saying the dirty words, and they're saying it. You know what they're saying, but it's like, you son at the beach, So he cuts a whole new film. So I went in and did all the Travolta stuff, and then he would come back and record, but then, when his son passed away, they ended up using a lot of my stuff for airplane versions.
I think the common denominator, though, to the motion capture stuff and the ADR stuff that all of us have to get over, which I'm sure we mostly have, is just this feeling of making a choice and feeling stupid, I guess. And because honestly, like, you're in a spandex suit with balls all over you, and you're just walking around like, I really have to be comfortable around all these people. And then in ADR, they want me to be imaginative and make risky choices. So kind of just getting over that initial fear. Like when they ask you to like scream and fall to your death, it's like you said, you just have to do it. There's no
you just gotta commit to it, that's it.
You just have to do it. There's no choice.
That is freeing.
That's it,
It's,
yeah.
and
You don't
they
get
feel
stuck in your mind trying to, you see a lot of method acting.
No, and that's when you're really doing good work as an actor too, when you're not in your head. And when you do commit to it, it's going to come across.
So people say, hey, I liked what you just did. And you're like, I have no idea what I just did.
I can't tell you how many times we leave the booth and you feel somewhat exhausted because you feel like you literally have been running through the jungle all day. You're like, you go back home and people are like, oh, how was work? And you're like, well, it was just, you realize, wait, I feel like what did I just do?
There was an actor who did like, you had to do, and sometimes in games you have to do the running sequence, like, the gentle run and then the full sprint. And somebody told me a story about the actor who did that sound of the person running, and they said, good cut. The guy went, and he fainted. He fainted in the booth. Hyperventilated and fainted.
Yeah.
Wasn't me. Graham McTavish, who is Lazarevich, is one of the sweetest, most fun to work with, great guys, and he's absolutely terrifying as Lazarevich.
So, this little man is Drake.
And it's one of those things where you're joking right before the camera rolls, you do your T-pose, and then all of a sudden he turns and he's mean.
So, this little man is Drake.
And as an actor and a persona, both on the screen and in that big empty studio, he comes in there and fills that space like nobody I've ever seen before.
And there's the additional
just by his
element.
presence.
You better pray that he is not bluffing. Search him.
And I remember Taylor, I was sitting with Taylor and he said, oh, listen to this, do you want some headphones? I said, no, I can see it's happening. He said, no, it's Graham, you need to hear this. And he gave me a set of spare cans and I saw one take without them, the next take. It was such a different world and such a different performance hearing what he was doing in that sort of sotto voce, that sort of low voice. It was so threatening, so menacing.
Did you carry him all the way from the temple? Shame.
I think it's funny watching you have to say Lazarevich.
I could not say
Not
it.
say it.
Lazarevich.
I'm rehearsals, I'm like, Lazarevich. We get out there, I'm like, Lazarevich.
Nate, this is Carl Schaefer.
How are you feeling?
I think one of my favorite scenes watching kind of the process happen was Schaefer towards the beginning when he's kind of coming across the desk with Nate and he's revealing the key.
Where did you find this?
And just because he's such a seasoned actor, I remember him saying, now, do you just want me to set it down open? Do you want me to take my time with it?
And kudos to Renee. He's done theater, he's done
he's a
television, film. I mean,
Tony
he's done.
Award, Emmy Award, you name it.
Yeah, I mean, he's done it all.
So, they have beaten you, huh?
It's easy to work on something when you're proud of what you're doing. I think we've all worked on shows or plays or something, God knows I have, that you're just not proud of what you're doing. And there's a check at the end of the day and that's all well and good, but to work on something that, wow, it makes all the difference in the world, at least to me.
I think you see it in the end product, right? And I think that's what people are responding
It
to. When
does-
they say
it
they love it,
does
and they've
really
played it
become-
over and over again, and their families love it, and you can tell that you're all having fun.
Now, what are you going to do for Uncharted 3, Flynn's Revenge? That's kind of what I want to know.
Fortune.
It's Flynn's Revenge. Or Finding Flynn, by the way, I thought was kind of a good. Finding Flynn. Finding Flynn.
It's actually Sullivan's
Catching
Folly.
Chloe.
Sullivan's Folly.
Or Robin Atkin Downs lives.
Oh, boy.
Okay? We're done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
PlayStation